wake that ass up.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
That's right.
We have Jasmine Crockett. Welcome.
Hey, y'all.
Now,
First of all, I don't like that this paper says that she's the owner of Bleach Blonde, Bad Built, Butch Body. As if that's the only thing she's ever done in her whole life. Like, what do you mean?
It is not the only thing.
It's a lot
That's
of things.
for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, but you know what? I appreciate Black Twitter, so let's give it up for Black Twitter. Because we have every genre of song, from country to gospel to trap music. We got it all. In fact, there's a really good blues version as well. But it's amazing when you think about politics. I never thought that I would be in a space where, number one, I would have to clap back on somebody like that, like in a committee. But number two, that people would actually pick it up and start educating people through song. So
Educating people.
Yeah, they educating them about, MAGA and Marge and all of them. So I appreciate it for what it is. But you're right. I'm so much more than that. And I appreciate that way before B6 came around, like you understood like the fights that I was waging for everyday people.
well, let's break it down for people that don't understand what happened that day, because we only seen clips. So what happened that day in front of Congress? So what happened? Break down everything that was going on.
Okay, so imagine that y'all skip out on work, because that's what the Republicans did. They decided to skip out on work. So we were supposed to have a hearing about our Attorney General, Merrick Garland, and they basically want to lock him up. But instead, what they did is they came to New York and they sat with Trump and coddled him while he was in trial, trying to make sure he did not get locked up. So they then said, you know what, since we decided we was going to skip work, we're going to do our work at 8 p.m. So we Democrats have been on the Hill all day. They come back. We go into a hearing so that they could hold him in consent. We get in the hearing, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, the gentle lady from Georgia, starts talking about Judge Merchan. And I was like, girl, do you know why we're here? Because, like, literally, like, I'm already feeling away because
Been there all day.
I've been there all day while y'all was playing up in New York. Like, go talk in front of those cameras about Judge Merchan, say what you got to say or whatever, because they were trying to get around the gag order. But I'm like, we here to talk about this. Say whatever you want to say about the Attorney General. And so she then came at me, was like, well, do you know why we here? And she decided she wanted to talk about my eyelashes. And I was like, girl, you haven't like looked at yourself. But I didn't get up. I didn't, immediately say anything. I tried to follow the rules.
They let that slide, though. I was kind of upset about that.
That was the thing. They did let it slide, and it was against the rules. So we have this rule talking about like personalities. You're not allowed to engage in personalities. Basically, I can't talk noise.
And why she make it seem like your eyelashes so long? Like you got 25 M's or something. Wait
a minute, I'm mad that you know the lengths. Nevertheless,
he wears them on the weekends.
I got 4 daughters, a wife.
You know what? Even if I got 50, it don't matter. It don't matter. Like you doing the most. And honestly, you only came for me because I'm a black woman. Because there are white women. In fact, one of my white female colleagues came up to me and was like, I may need to bleach my hair, but I'm not getting rid of my lashes. And so she was like, Marge would never say anything to me about my lashes, because she does. She wears lashes or whatever. So I'm just like, girl. And my initial retort, what I wanted to say is, you may still have your husband if you wore some lashes. But nevertheless, but I did not do that.
Yeah, that's right,
I did not do that. And AOC jumped in almost immediately. And AOC was like, yo, this is against the rules. But Comer decided, I'm going to let it slide. And of course, it to me is like what we always experience as black women. It's like, you know what, somebody punched you, but that's okay. You'll be all right, girl. Sit there and take it. But here's the deal. We on the same level, and I'm not going to sit there. And so I wanted to exemplify, number one, if this is how you're going to conduct these hearings, I just want you to know that it's going to be some real smoke coming from our side, right? And so I did not direct my words to her. I didn't even say her name.
You asked a question.
Which I asked a question. I asked a parliamentary question. Right. And I did it in a somewhat poetic way. And so, it ended up immediately taking off. My pastor actually called me while I was in committee.
What did the pastor say?
Listen, I was like, so for y'all that don't know, my pastor is Freddie Haynes.
Freddie? Freddie's fantastic.
Yeah, he is. And so I was like, why he calling me? But it was late at night. So I declined it. And so I was like, I'm in committee. He was like, I know. And I'm like, well, why you calling me?
You said God to voicemail? You said the pastor to voicemail?
The messenger of God.
You said the messenger? You said the messenger to voicemail?
I was in committee. I got to do the work of the people.
Jasmine, all right.
And so then he was like, yo, you have to give me a warning before you say. And then he went into the phrase, And so I was like, did my team put this on the internet? Because it literally was while I was still in committee. But I found out that it was going viral almost instantly. And yeah, my pastor hit me up.
So when did you write beach blonde, bad built, butch body? Like, was that something you
Great
had
alliteration.
in the cut ready?
No.
I love alliteration.
No.
Was that something you had in the cut? Because it was amazing.
It wasn't. So when Comer decided that he was going to rule against me, I literally looked over at her because she sits on the same row as me, and from head to toe,
he was like,
is what I did. And I was
blonde.
like, and I literally from head to toe. So my granny used to talk about people being bad built. So that was an ode to my granny. That was something she used to say.
The thing I loved about it, and you said it earlier about how if y'all keep coming at us like this, there's going to be smoke from
Absolutely.
this side. There should
Absolutely.
always be smoke from this side because everybody acts like what they do is so normal to the point that it's
Yeah.
become normalized.
Yeah.
So when you did that, it's like finally somebody's reacting the way they should react to them.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I think that we've seen the devolution of politics because people aren't pushing back and saying this is not what we do, right? And it's interesting because once I pushed back, there was all of this like attention on me, right? It's like, well, you were wrong. I mean, what did Michelle Obama say? It was all this kind of stuff, right? And it's like, no, like I don't think that that's what the former first lady meant, is for me to sit there and just have you talk to me crazy and we're on the same level and we're in a business setting. And so I'm like, that's not how I would think that she would want me to act. But nevertheless, I know my district. And how is it I'm going to say that I'm going to fight for you and I can't fight for myself?
That's right.
So I'm not going to sit here and allow the likes of a Marjorie Taylor Greene to sit there and clown me. But I did try to go through the process, which is something that she ignored. She's always ignored the rules. I at least was trying to follow the rules. But once they failed, I still never got outside of the rules. But it's about doing what they are trying to do and doing it better and doing it right. And that's exactly what I did. And I think that the Democrats have all the intellect on our side. So we can always do it better and smarter. It's a matter of, are we going to?
But do you have the courage? Like you showed courage. The reason I call a lot of Democrats cowards is because they don't exhibit courage. Yes, you have the intellect. You have the truth. You might even be doing the right thing. But where is the courage to stand up to this new type of conservative called MAGA?
Yeah. No, I think that there are those traditional Democrats that are really still stuck. They are still stuck in this, if we just lead by example. And it's like, these people ain't following no example. Like, the only example they follow is Trump.
That's right.
Right? And that's exactly who Marjorie is. Like, Trump goes out, he makes a nickname for everybody, calling them out their name, calling their wives out their names, that kind of stuff. So she thought that she was going to come at me. Baby, you need to keep that on y'all side of the aisle, because clearly you ain't never went to school with a black person, because you would have known, do not talk about a black person. Like, we grew up talking about each other.
That's right.
Like, that's what we do.
That's right.
Like,
that's easy.
So it is very easy. So she learned.
How did you feel about when you see people pulling up to Marjorie Greene at the airport?
That was amazing.
Because that's going to happen all the time now.
That was amazing.
So when you saw that, what did you
video,
think?
Yeah, no. That took me out. It was funny because I was laid in bed, and the person that sent me the video was actually Amanda. So Amanda Seals, so she sent me the video, and she's like, "I'm sure this will make you smile." And I was like,
the only thing I don't like about that though is I don't want them to encourage to do that to y'all, because they're a little they're gonna be different.
No. But you know what? They always are a little different with us. I mean, I get death threats, right? Like, that's not what it should be to be in politics. Like, I've not done anything that should warrant anybody trying to take my life ever. And so, they are the radicals that are always pushing the envelope, so to speak, right? Like, these are the ones that went into the Capitol and trying to tear it apart. So, like, they about that life anyway, right? Like, you're talking about neo-Nazis, you're talking about the Proud Boys. Like, I'm the type of person that they gonna come from my neck no matter what. And so we do have to have heightened security consistently. And when you look at the threats overall against politicians, they have consistently gone up and up and up. The thing that Marjorie should be lucky to have is that black people may play in your face, but like, legitimately, like, as far as harming you, they're not going to try to do that. Like, they're not. And that black woman was absolutely right, because, Marjorie want to talk like big and bad in committee, and she's like, oh, did I hurt your feelings and all of that, but she ain't have nothing to say when that black woman came through the airport and was like, oh, so you ain't like that, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, with the first lady, it's interesting, right? Because the phrase when they go low, we go high. I feel like that applied to the time that she was in. 2024 and probably beyond is a totally different time.
It is a different time, but I also want people to evaluate the lens in which she was working from. She was the only Black first lady, right? Like she's on a level up here. And what was happening is you had all of these trolls that were online and they were saying all kinds of things. They were calling her all types of animals. They were talking about her appearance. They were doing all the things that racist people do, right? Is trying to tear her down physically because they could not match her intellectually whatsoever. But what does it look like if the first lady is literally lowering herself to respond to somebody that like is hiding behind a keyboard and got 5 followers? Like that is literally going low. You are lower than her. But what we're talking about in this scenario, like which other first ladies were trying to come at her and talk about her?
That's real.
That's not what that was. But literally we're on the same level. We have the same space that we occupy. So this isn't about going low to low, but as Simone Sanders says, it's about going toe to toe.
Now, what is your thoughts on? I know you don't have much time. You got to catch a flight. Donald Trump's conviction. But what's your thoughts on that? And does that help or does that make it worse?
Sing?
You can say whatever you want to say.
Hallelujah. Listen, I don't know who. I mean, I guess it made it worse since those broke people decided that they was gonna get their last $5 and donate to him and crash his website to the extent that he got a bunch more money just to pay for his appeals process, not to go into the election. I think that, for a lot of us who have seen him playing in our face and having the audacity to say, I'm going to play in your face and I'm going to get away with it, which is what he's always said to us, even before he ever got caught up. I think that it was a good moment for white privilege to recognize that, like, you can get the smoke too in this country. But I also think that it's a really sad moment in our country because we really are only a two-party system. For those that don't know, a third-party person ain't going to win presidency, at least not this term, right? Like, you're not even going to get on all of the ballots to be able to get it. Like, there's a lot of reasons. Like, so they're not going to win. So it's between Joe and it's between Trump. And the fact that we have someone who has 34 felony counts worth of convictions, and literally there's places, Eric Swalwell just brought this up in committee. He's like, it's a whole list of countries you can't even go to. So how are you going to be the leader of the free world and you not even allowed to step foot in certain countries because you're a convicted felon?
He can't go to Toronto. He's supposed to.
There's a lot. He went through a whole list of like places.
Can't go to Japan.
A ton of places.
What do they amend to where, I don't know, I want to say in the future, but how do you make it to where that can't happen, where you can't have all of those convictions and still be president?
Yeah, that's legislation. I mean, I think that our framers never contemplated that, right? Because he can't be a city councilman. Right. He can't be a mayor. He can't sit on a school board. He can't do state.
He can't be a police officer, but he can be the president.
Correct. So I just don't think that our framers really contemplated some of this. It's just like we have a bunch of January 6ers that are running for Congress right now. Like, because the only thing you can run for and have convictions on your record is to get 6 figures from the federal government.
That's crazy.
Wow. That is the only thing that you can do. Wow. And, I think that Trump could have an opportunity. I think that he really is, again, playing in our face like, oh, yeah, black people, they gonna feel me because I got convictions too. Bro, it's completely different, number one. Number two, I think that you could have a real conversation. Like, I've worked on ban the box type of legislation that would at least allow people to get an opportunity to get in, do that interview. Like, what legislation do you want to pass based upon the experience that you're saying that you had personally? There is legislation that could help people, especially when we start talking about those that have a record. So many people aren't able to go to college because of their record. They're not able to, well, they can't get the funding. Right. Let me say that. They aren't able to get certain housing because they have a record. They aren't able to qualify for so many jobs because they have a record. And we're talking about hourly jobs. So I think that there is a good opportunity, but MAGA isn't really about that life. They're not about critical thinking. They're not about providing solutions for other people. They just don't want their cult leader to have to deal with a life of policies that have forever consistently held black and brown communities down.
That narrative that black people, black men in particular, are supporting Trump because he's a criminal. That came from the right. Like, that wasn't a narrative that started in our communities in any way, shape, or form. The right-wing media started that narrative.
Yeah.
Trump started that narrative. And now you have a few people adopting it, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, no, I absolutely don't believe it. And maybe for those that have never interacted with us, it probably is easy for them to believe or for them to parrot. But I talk to real people. Now, will I say that there are some people that are turned off and they're saying, I don't want to vote at all? I will absolutely say that I run into that where people are like, yo, I just don't really feel like either party is doing anything for me. So what's the point, right? I do run into that type of conversation, but I don't run into a conversation where people are like, oh yeah, so I'm just going to go out and vote for Trump. Like, I see it online a little bit, but I feel like we don't know what's real and what's not because we know that China as well as Russia have consistently tried to interfere with our elections by doing so much online. So I don't know how many of these accounts are real or not, but like, I have a majority black district. When I go home, I'm not dealing with that. They just like, I'm not really sure that I really want to vote that much.
How do you
and I
get
think people don't
charged up?
understand that. People don't understand when you say, I'm not feeling any of this right now. It doesn't mean, hey, I'm leaving from the Democratic Party to go to vote for Donald Trump.
Correct.
It's like I'm part of the exhausted majority. I'm tired
Exactly.
of it all.
But that is a problem, though, right? Because if
It is a
people are not
problem.
voting for, the Democrat side, then you allow more people to vote
Correct.
Republican. So I was going to ask,
Or they may not vote at all.
well, that could be a problem.
Yeah, but like when we're talking about a numbers game, like if we decide to stay at home, right? Like I'm headed to Detroit here in a second, right? Like I got to get to Detroit. I got to make sure that I'm talking to people because one of the things I think we run into is like we want to beat up on people and be like, yo, you got to go vote because people died, which is true, right? Like I feel that. I get it, right? But if you didn't see your mother, your father, your grandparents like marching, like you're not necessarily so connected to that, right? And it's a matter of informing people like, what does voting get me? What do I get out of this, right? And so I like to tell people like, I know that they try to blame the president for everything that's bad in their lives and usually don't really give them credit for anything that's good in their lives. But it's not just the president. Like, the fact is right now, House Democrats are some of the most popular people in politics right now. Like it's looking to the House, it's looking to the Senate. It takes all of us because the president can't really do much by himself. He just did an executive order as it relates to the border and immigration. And so now people are like, well, that's too late or that ain't enough. You're right. It takes legislation. And that's what he tried to do. They had legislation that was ready to go that he was going to sign into law, but he can't do it all on his own. And so chances are there will potentially be litigation as it relates to the executive order. But at least the president can say, I tried, because Trump is the one that said, hey, Republicans, follow me. I'm your leader. Do not allow this legislation to go forward, even though they had worked collaboratively in the way the government is supposed to work. So I just want to say that, listen, people need to recognize their power and they need to start showing up and telling people, listen, you work for me, because that's what it is. Right. I serve at the pleasure of the people, and you need to start telling people what it is that you want and what it is that you need. And when they don't give it to you, vote them out. Like that's just, it's very simple. But I don't think that people really understand what all we can do, right? Like they don't understand. Like we talked about SNAP benefits last time I was here. We had a whole 13-hour markup where the Republicans are like, we're not going to do this. So I made it clear. I was like, that more of rural America uses SNAP benefits than urban America. That's right. So I was like, I do want to be clear that I'm fighting for my constituents, but I'm also fighting for yours. And so many of these Republicans talked about, well, yeah, I was raised on SNAP. So you forgot or you just don't care? Like, I don't understand what's going on. But when people are talking about the cost of food being so high, part of that we can control. Part of that we can do something about. But we definitely can do something about making sure that we put a few more dollars in your pocket. Or the child tax credit. People got, an extra $300 a child. They didn't really know why they were getting that. They didn't know where it came from. But that was this administration that was saying, hey, we're going to give you this child tax credit. It cut African-American child poverty into half, right? But then the Republicans ended up in control of the House, and they yeah, so we not about that life. But their constituents in rural America needed it too. So we did a little compromise of something, and there's a little something that's coming down the pipe, but it's not enough, right? So we have to let people know you actually received extra money, and that was this administration understanding that it was hard.
You have to let people know that because, people are still stuck on the stimulus checks and they're still stuck
They
on
are
the PPP
still
loans.
stuck on the stimmies, and everybody got arrested for PPP.
Well, because
Jasmine got to go. She got a flight.
That's true. One more question. Why are you the only person in the Democratic Party who seems to understand that the language of politics is dead?
I don't know that I'm the only person.
You message very well, and you message to where people can understand. Like one of my little mentees. I don't want to say little. She's a grown woman, but she's not quite 30 yet. But she saw you in Georgia last week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and she literally sent me a video of you talking because you said to the people, you should go out there and support this administration. This administration has done a lot. I think you told them go Google what they've done. You probably don't know what they've done because they've done so much.
Yeah.
And she was like, I need Jasmine to tell me, what exactly they did. But I'm saying all that to say they're listening to you and want to hear what you have to say because you message very well.
I think it's really my legal training, right? Like I would walk into juries all over, and when you walk in and you're talking to a jury, you're talking to everyday people.
That's right.
But I have legal principles that I have to translate. And so I had to know like what the law was, but I couldn't talk to you in legalese. I had to be able to translate for you.
Niggalese.
And be So one of my best friends from law school, in law school we have this dictionary called the Black's Law Dictionary. And so when we were in law school, he'd be like, yo, I don't understand what happened in class. I need you to give me the Black's Law version. And so I'd be like, so when your cousin Pookie, like I would break it down, right? But I think that we do get caught up on the language, and the reality is that most everyday people don't live in our bubble.
That's right.
So we have to make sure that we're communicating in a way that they understand. And we're doing the work, but we also need to do some media training. I just talked about that. I'm like, we need everybody to do media training. I haven't had any, but because I have been consistently in front of audiences for years, I think that I know how to maneuver a little bit. Right. But you never know when like the next tornado or whatever is coming through your community and you have to get in front of a camera. And you need to be able to communicate with the people that you serve and make them understand what you're saying in a very digestible and very quick way. We don't talk in sound bites either. Like Democrats believe in giving you the entire Project 2025 book. Like they want to give you like a full thesis because we do put a lot of thought into stuff. It's why we don't do well on messaging on immigration. Immigration has so many layers and it's so complicated, and we want to tell everybody, and it's like we can't do that. Like let's just go ahead and keep it simple. There's nothing simple about immigration, nothing at all. But the simple messaging is winning, even if it's not true. And that's the other thing. Republicans will lie. They will lie just to put something out there, and Democrats are like trying to prove why they're lying, and it's like we ain't got time for that. Just slap them down or something.
I'll just listen to people like you said. Like I've repeated things that I've heard and seen activists in Chicago talking about in regards to the border. What I've heard and seen people here in New York talking about when it comes to immigration. So it's like I'm repeating what the people are saying. Yeah, you can't chalk that up as MAGA messaging.
No,
like,
no, you can't. And we have to listen. Like even if people don't understand like why this or that is happening, we have to. We can't make people feel uncomfortable with talking to us. We have to listen to them and say, we understand. And then we have to do our best to educate them on what it is that we can and what we can't do. Because some people think that we can fix it all and we can't. Or they think they don't realize that like nothing's getting fixed because the Republicans control the House. Democrats kind of control the Senate. And then we have the president. Like it takes an entire team. And that's the message that I'm sending everybody is like, don't just worry about the top. You need to worry about all the way down to the state house. Right now in the state of Texas, they're like, you know what? We want to bring about the death penalty for women that seek abortions. They literally want you to choose death or death. That is insane. So the president of the United States, unless he has a Democratic House and Senate, he can't fix what the state of Texas is doing. So you absolutely have to pay attention to who also is on the state level that you're voting for. So I just want people, when I said Google, I was trying to make sure that people understand that they also have an obligation, right? Like, we have to do our part. We have to educate. We have to communicate. It costs a lot of money for us to communicate. You got to spend millions and millions of dollars to get on cable TV, to get on broadcast TV, to get on radio. You have to do a lot to communicate to people, to send mail. You don't have to do as much to do it on social media, but it takes a lot, right? But I also want people to start understanding that they also have an obligation. This is your vote. If I'm out there telling you to vote for me, I'm not going to tell you the bad stuff about me. I'm going to just sell myself to you, right? But just like when you go buy a car, it's like, you know what, that car is good and this and that and whatever. The car salesman going to tell you everything amazing.
That's right.
But you got to do your research and you got to find out will this car last and that kind of stuff. So I just also want to encourage people to just jump on Google and do a little bit of research as well.
Is it true that after the B6 comments happened, the vice president called you and just laughed and hung up the phone? Didn't even say hello, just and just hung up. She did her Kamala laugh.
She did not call and laugh. But I will tell you that I love our vice president, and she is very protective, specifically, in my opinion. I mean, she may be protective of some other people, but of us as Black women. So she does call to check. She will have us come over to her residence and want to sit down and have a very real conversation about our challenges, because she also experiences a lot of this. So I feel like we have an amazing sister circle with the vice president, because no matter how big she is, she always takes the time. And I'm sitting there like, you're checking on me? Like, because I know how they come for her throat. You know what I'm saying?
That's why we're waiting for her to have her own clapbacks, because we saw her in those Senate hearings back in the day. We know that's in her. If you ever sat down with the VP, you know that's in her.
No, the VP, she's got it, and obviously she was a trial lawyer as well, and she's a Black woman, so like she's got it. I do want people to understand that when it comes to the vice presidential role, it is a supporting cast member, and I think that because she is the first of her kind, and because there were people that went out and said, I'm voting because they wanted to vote for her.
I was one of them.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that did that. So I think that people want more of her than like the actual role allows for or calls for at times, right? Like when in fact, when I was in Atlanta, one of the things I said, I was like, most people can't even name 5 other vice presidents. Right. Like they can't. Like they don't know other vice presidents, because it's always been a supporting cast member. And I think that, unfortunately, just like almost everything in Black folks' lives and definitely in Black women's lives, so much more is expected of us. And I don't want us to do that to her. I do want us to allow her to be a traditional vice president, which is a supporting cast member. But at the same time, I know that she recognizes that we are all rooting for her, which means that we want to see her. We want to hear from her, because there were people that showed up and voted because she was on the ticket.
I was one of them. I never said I was voting for President Biden. I said I was voting because of Kamala Harris. I always said that.
And I do want to be clear, because people talk about like, there's no excitement. And I was like, do y'all remember? It was Uncle Clyburn. It was Congressman Clyburn that basically kind of got things shifted around.
South Carolina, my home.
Right. I mean, that was when there was a shift. And so I was like, y'all weren't excited before. Like, this was a matter of people showing up and saying, you know what? I got to do the responsible thing. This is the responsible thing for the country, right? And so now for people to want all this excitement, I was like, y'all weren't excited 4 years ago. It was about doing the responsible thing. Now, I can't say what's going to happen 4 years from now, but I can say that, like, when you look at being responsible, when you look at the Black wealth gap actually, finally starting to close it up a little bit, we still are nowhere near where we need to be. When you look at the amount of debt that has been relieved from Black folks, specifically when it comes to student loan debt, when you look at the fact that this president has been on the picket lines and making sure that those in Detroit and any other place where they are manufacturing cars, and he is fighting with them to make sure that they get higher wages. When you look at the fact that, my granny, she has sugar diabetes, as they used to call it, right? Making sure that people can actually afford their life-saving medications. I can tell you that not everything in this world has been fixed, but I can tell you that there's one team that is fighting every single day to make this world better. And there's another team that literally wants to delete our humanity and look at us and act as if we are not. My governor pardoned a police officer who was convicted by a jury of his peers for literally killing a Black Lives Matter activist.
Say his name, Governor Greg Abbott.
Governor Greg Abbott. And here's the problem. That happened maybe 2 weeks after the whole dog situation with Kristi Noem. Now, the whole country went crazy about her killing her dog. I keep trying to remind people that this country still values the life of a dog over our lives. And if we continue to put people into office, and that even means some of our skinfolk who definitely are not our kinfolk, such as Byron Donalds, who are going to continue to say that, like, I mean, the fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow, like, is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you? I'm not really sure, like, what it is.
Well,
but
you
I
couldn't
need
even be married to a white woman under Jim
correct,
Crow.
correct. And it took Joy to call him out. So I'm like, bruh, like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you saying? Like, he just out here, you know, I feel like they give him his talking points and he's like, yes, massa, I got it. And it's not enough. So neither party is perfect. I will agree with that. So people that take issue with both parties, I completely understand. There is no perfection that actually resides on this earth, but there is a party that at least is striving for a more perfect union, and that's the Democrats.
Well,
Jasmine got to go.
I know. People like you give me hope in the future of the Democratic Party. What's the website for the bleach blonde,
Oh,
bad
yes,
built, butch
the
body t-shirts?
clapbackcollection.com. Yes. The
clapbackcollection.com.
.com. That's right. Get your shirt.
Jasmine Crockett, ladies and gentlemen, she got a flight, and I don't know how she's gonna get to the airport, but we got to get her there fast. You good?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Jasmine Crockett. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Wake that ass up.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.